So, this is just a few thoughts about choice from a man who should probably be ironing his t-shirt instead of making videos, but never mind, there we go. Get the wrinkles out. So I was just thinking about choice and actually in normal life, choice is important. We want choice about uh, medical treatment, choice about education, choice about where we live, choice about housing, choice about schools, all kinds of choices that we like to be able to have the choice about. And this is important, but there's more important choice than that to be made in life. And I was thinking about how God sees choice and how fundamentally important it is to him that we have choice, that we have a freedom of choice, that we make choices. It's important that we make the right choices, but it's important to him that we have the freedom to make choice and that we do choose and we positively choose. And having said that, of course, sometimes not to choose is making a choice. When you have option A and option B, and not to choose one ends up with the other, then not to choose can be, in effect, making a choice. So just thinking about choice and how important it is to God that we are able and that we do make choices and that we're free to do it and that we're not forced or manipulated. And God doesn't force or manipulate us into making choices. He wants us to choose because he wants the people who love him for who he is and who choose him because they want to choose him, not because they've been backed into a corner and there's no way out. And the whole Bible story starts off with choice in Genesis, with the story in the garden, the choice about whether to eat from one tree or not to eat from that tree. And that was just quite simply a choice about whether to obey God or not to obey God. And it didn't go well. But it was there because God wanted them to have the freedom to choose whether to obey him or not to obey him. He didn't want them to be in that garden feeling, I must do this or I must do that. Otherwise, there'll be trouble. He wanted them to be in that garden thinking, I love to do this and I love to do that because I love the one who put me here. And just as an aside, it's interesting that there's another tree in the garden, in the middle of the garden, called the tree of life, which would be actually the very life of God. And they chose not to go for that one. So that's interesting. Anyway, so you move through the scripture, you move into Deuteronomy, and God says in chapter 28, 29, I lay before you blessing and cursing. Choose, and therefore choose life. He's urging us to choose life. And actually, so many people choose not life. They choose blessing and cursing. They choose not to walk with God. They choose evil. They choose darkness, and they call that freedom, and they enjoy it, and they've chosen that they don't want what God offers. But God is just saying, there's a choice. Will you make the choice? Will you choose? And then just going on from that, I was just thinking about, and I hope this isn't a tangent really, but I was thinking about Jeremiah 29 and God saying, I know the plans I have for you, the plans for good and what not for evil and so on. And in all that, he's got plans for us that are good plans, but there are choices even there. Because sometimes we can make this whole thing about God's plan for us. Some Christians do that. This must be a very rigid thing, and if I'm not careful, I'll step out of His plan. You know, if I don't go to this place tomorrow, I might step out of His plan. If I don't do this thing or that thing, or join this thing or that thing, or if I don't do this job rather than that job, then perhaps I'm stepping out of His plan, and this would be awful. But actually, in all this, God has a plan, but there's also choice. Sometimes he has specific plans. He has specific things he would like us to go after, and he will make that clear. And if he's not making that clear, then there's probably choice. And he likes us to choose. You know, with our kids, when those of us who've got kids, we don't we don't corral them and just choose everything for them and say you must do this, you must do that. We like to lay before them choices. What would you like to do today? We've got a day off. We're going to go out. What would you like to do? Would you like to do this, or would you like to do that? And if they say we'd like to do option A, our faces don't fall and go, "Oh, you stepped right out of my plan." You know, from now on, it's going to be downhill. It's going to be a miserable day. Things are going to go wrong for you. We're not like that. We want them to choose, and we want them to enjoy choosing, and we teach them to be able to choose. So, although God has plans for us, and they're good plans, and they're not bad plans, within that there are choices, and we're free to make choices. And unless he's actually saying very definitely, I want you in this place to live in this house or that house or in this town or that town for a particular reason, then there is choice. If he hasn't said, I want you in this job for this purpose, then there is a choice. And I'm just reminded of the verse in Romans that says, he is able to make all things work together for good. So whatever house we live in, whatever street we live in, whatever church we go to, whatever job we take, assuming that God hasn't said, I really want you to take that particular choice. I would love you to. If he's not saying that, then God is able to make all things work together for good. And instead of being sort of cut up and sort of really worried, have we made the right choice about this or that, which could end up in did I choose the right cereal for breakfast or the right tie to wear for work if you still wear a tie for work and so on, or whether to iron my shirt or not iron my shirt and so on. Actually, that can end up as like a kind of spiritual bondage. And I think the important thing, and somebody else said this to me today and I thought it was really good, actually we need to enjoy the journey that we're on. And there will be places he will lead us to and things he'll lead us into. And on the way, there are choices that we can make. And we just need to relax, to enjoy him, to enjoy the journey, and to enjoy the learning that comes on that journey. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes things are awkward. Sometimes things are hard. But we didn't become Christians for an easy life. And actually part of the thing that God does is he molds us and he shapes us. And if you take a bit of plasticine and you want to mold it, you don't just sit and look at it and say, become a model of a man or a car or a goat or something. You actually have to start putting some pressure on it to get it to become what you want it to become. And sometimes God has to put us in situations of pressure. And actually, in that, we can thank him because he cares. He cares enough to mold us and to shape us. But I think that the main thing out of this is we have choices. We can make choices. We're free to make them. He can nudge us and help us change direction if it's not quite the direction he wants. He's very capable of speaking to us if we want to hear. And in the meantime, enjoy the journey with him and enjoy what he's doing. And that's it, really, I think. So now I'll go and iron my shirt.